questions ask for both a cosine and a sine. Which one do you want to do first? Okay, so if we go to a sine graph, you can pick either one of these. It doesn't matter. The key is that it starts at the center line and ends at the center line. So what should we probably mark down first? The center line. How do we find the center line? Something with the middle, something with the max, yes. Height, something with the height of the middle. So max plus min divide by 2. David, doing this. Okay, what's the value of the max? Value of the min? 9 plus 3? Divide by 2. Okay, so let's draw it in. Absolutely. Remember, it's a dotted line because it's not really part of the graph, so that's how we draw lines that are imaginary. So we have a bunch of choices. I could start right at the y-axis, which starts at the center line, and I can go there till it comes back to the center line. I could start by going down first and then going up. I could choose to cut it here. There's an up and a down. I could choose to cut it here, a down and an up. Doesn't matter. No, they're all going to give us a sine graph. It's just the c value is going to be different, and that's okay. I would go for the obvious. I would cut it right at the y-axis, and then you want an up and a down, and so when you come back to the center line, I would cut it there. If you're visual, sometimes it helps just to trace that part of the graph. Again, that's only one choice for the sine graph. As long as it starts at the center line and ends at the center line, that's a sine graph. Okay, so now I need the A, B, C, D. Which one of these did I already calculate? D. D is the center line, so it's done. Then I like to go up to A because I find it the next easiest. What's the definition of A? So what's the vocabulary word? What do we call it? Amplitude. What's the definition of the amplitude? Max to center line or min to center line. So we're looking either the distance of the bump here or the distance of the valley. How many units? Offer of 3. Okay, then I like to go to B. B is something to do with the period. Anyone want to remember from yesterday? 2 pi divided by the period. And the period is just from the start put to the end point. So how many units is one cycle of the graph or one repetition of the graph? Well, is it an exact point? I would agree, probably 3.5, kind of in the middle. Are we okay with that? Or do you want to go back to 3? Okay, what's the better estimate? Okay, I would go 3 too, because it's a better number than 3.5. And what's the C value? C is always the hardest one for people to see. What's the definition of C? Phase shift. So that's a side-to-side movement. So you're looking at the distance from the y-axis to the starting point. Distance from the y-axis to the starting point. Well, it starts right on the y-axis. So what does that mean about the phase shift? It's 0. And now we're just going to put it into the equation. We have to start with y equals, because it's an equation. A comes first. This is a sine graph. B comes next, followed by x, theta, whatever kind of variable you want. I don't need the plus 0, so I'm not going to write anything because there is no c value. And at the end, we're going to do plus 6. Okay, it also asks for a cos graph. Okay, so look back up here. Either one of these are cos graph. It's completely your choice. You can go from max to max or min to min. Again, we have lots of choices. I could cut it at the first max and cut it at the second max. Okay, there's a cos graph. I could do first min to second min. There's a negative cos graph. I could just move it along and do it from the second max to the third max. There's a cos graph. Lots of possibilities. We tend to just go with the first one, but it's completely up to you. Where would you like to cut it? Max to max or min to min? Okay, first max, second max, third max. First, okay, which means the second point or the end point is going to be the second max. Okay, so here is our coast graph. Does the center line change? Does the amplitude change? Does the period change? What's the only value that changes? C is the only value that changes. Definition of C is the phase shift. That's the distance from the y-axis to the starting point. So we need to figure out how many units did we push this little guy over. Offer of 2, offer of 1. Sounds like agreement at 1. Okay, so we start with y equals just like before. Amplitude is the same. This time we have a cos function. Period is the same. Open the bracket. X, theta, t, whatever you want to use. Minus 1. Why is it minus? Because it went to the right. And then plus 6. We're not going to, but if you wanted to check this, you could put both of these into your calculator and they should be right on top of each other because these are the exact same equation. It's just cutting them in different spots. Show me your thumb. I'm getting this. I'm kind of getting this. I'm right in. Well, then I need to see that. Thank you. Thank you. This one specifically has asked for a sine equation, which means you can't use cos because it's specified. And I love this because this was an exam question maybe 3 years ago, and somebody called me over during the exam. Panicked, yes, they spelt sine wrong. Did they spell sine wrong? No, SIN is our abbreviation for sine with an E. Okay, so you think of sine graph, and that can be positive or negative. It doesn't matter. You need to understand where we're cutting that. Is that max to max? Is it min to min? Is it center line to center line? So look at the 4 little base graphs that we drew. Which one is a sine curve? Center line to center line. So the first thing is to draw the center line. Well, we can calculate it, or as Noah asked last time, if you can see it, then just draw it. Where is the center line going to be? Right on the x-axis. We can see that it's symmetric. If you weren't sure of that, you could calculate the max, add to the min, divide by 2. So the purpose of drawing the center line is just a little bit easier to see where the endpoints are going to be. I'm going to go for the most obvious one, so the first one. And we're going to go up, and then we need a down, and then we're going to stop. Not my only choice. I could have chosen to cut it at the second time it crossed and go all the way to the end. That would be a negative sine graph. Turn to someone in front, behind, beside you, write down the 4 values, then wait. So figure out together the A, B, C, D, and E. Sometimes I forget to unmute it. Interesting. D. 0. I always go that one first because we had to calculate it anyway. Then I jump to A. Offer of 3. I heard 2. 3. 3 sound confirmed. Tell me where that comes from. Yep, so center line to the max or center line to min, whether it goes up or down. B, 2 pi over, and then I had heard some people saying, I'm not too sure about this one. How do we find the number on the bottom? It's the period, which is the starting point to the end point, so the distance between one repetition of the graph. Okay, so what value is the starting point at? 2. Confirm. 27. Confirm. So how many units between 2 and 27? 25. Can we reduce 2 on 25? Nope, so we just leave it. C is always the trickiest one. People always forget C. 2, where does 2 come from? Okay, so it's the y-axis to the first starting point. I guess first is redundant since it's starting point. Okay, so how much did we push it over? Okay, we always start with y equals because it's an equation. What am I going to write next? If I don't put those brackets, what is this minus 2? It's the d value, so that you have to have the brackets so that we know it's horizontal. Why is there nothing at the end here? Because it's plus 0. Who had it? Awesome. So the rest of the time until, well, till the bell, obviously.